Well, happy, beautiful, amazing day. I'm Dr. Bobrakowski, and welcome to this episode of the Doc Walk. And I'm going to introduce you to a student of mine. He was a student 17 years ago. We didn't get close as teacher-student because Samuel had his niche that he ran after. He ran after it very, very effectively. Is serving the world, especially through better health, but now 17 years in clinical practice with a profound interest in the brain, because his story started with something that I bet every one of us has experienced at least once or twice in our life. And some of us, I hate to say, way too often, and that is brain fog. So first and foremost, Samuel, welcome, welcome, welcome. And let's start with your story. Tell me about this brain fog and where it led you.
Yeah, led me to, I graduated in 2017, so not quite 17 years of
Oh,
practice,
gosh.
but
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
might feel like it. But in a history of head trauma, going through a couple concussions as a kid, things like that, ended up doing a PSEO program. So I went to school, college as a high school senior, and going through college classes and things like that. I knew what I was capable of, but I just felt like a hamster spinning on a wheel. Trying to do engineering courses, and I did the work. I knew what to do next, but I couldn't just quite make that decision. And so brain fog is something that I think we can all relate to, whether you're tired or whatever was causing it. But I was fortunate enough to have a family friend refer me to a functional medicine clinic. We did some blood tests and found out about a casein, dairy protein intolerance, and gluten intolerance. They told me to take it easy and take it out slow, but once I had something to fight, it was out of there, and I got it out of my diet right away. I went from, barely getting C's on my engineering classes in college to acing the final exam. I was prepared to be accused of cheating, but my professors were great. They knew what was going on, and so that really showed me the power of what we put in our bodies and natural healthcare. So I changed my major soon after that, started getting my prereqs to go to be a chiropractor. Not because I really knew what chiropractic was about, but just because I wanted to be have a doctorate so that I could do functional medicine. Got into school and fortunate enough to have some good mentors around me and realize, the principle, the big idea of chiropractic is our brain controls our body, every single part of it. So once I realized that, I thought, man, I better try to clear up any miscommunication there as much as we can. And then we'll use supplements to supplement a healthy diet and lifestyle. So I became obsessed with removing nerve interference so the brain can talk to the body, taking out those inflammatory foods if necessary and when necessary. And then we implement some functional medicine protocols, not to the extent of Dr. Bob, but we are a tonal chiropractic first practice, and never looked back. It's been good.
I want to add a few highlights on that. You're a man of faith, and
Yes.
I don't understand how anybody gets by this world without faith. It'd certainly be a darker place, wouldn't it be?
100%.
So
Yeah,
life happens for us, not to us. You can
exactly.
be a victim or a leader. You can't be both. So you have this brain fog to teach you a lesson and show you the way.
Yeah.
That's what I believe as was the divine purpose. And by the way, gluten and dairy, most of us in functional medicine, those are one of the first things we get rid of. If you haven't tried a gluten-free, dairy-free, you owe it to yourself. Give it a good spin. How fast did you see a difference on that diet?
I mean, 2, 3 days. Clear. And then for a while there, whenever I would accidentally run into gluten or dairy, I could tell I felt foggy. Now, years later, I can eat an ice cream cone and I don't really know much of a difference. My gut has healed up. I don't do it every day, but if I do it too much, I can feel it. But you've got some resilience there. And I think it's kind of funny how a lot of people are obsessed about going to the gym, getting stronger, pushing yourself to failure, but it comes to their diet and they get a little dogmatic about it. It's like, oh no, it's not organic, I can't touch it. It's like, well, wait, like we need to be adaptable, and 80-20 rule, or some version of that. It's okay to just stress yourself and challenge yourself on what your diet can do, but not an everyday staple. So
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw a little philosophy on that. 80-20 is the universal principle. It's been around for God knows how long. They call it the Pareto principle. But here's what my mentors taught me. It's easier to stay out of trouble than get out of trouble. So
yeah.
when you're in trouble, you got to be more diligent. But hey, once you start building that reserve like you have done, what would destroy you before, it doesn't even dent you today.
Yeah.
And isn't that what we want for everybody?
Yeah.
Don't we want them to be so strong that whatever storms of life come by, we just had a hurricane hit yesterday, and I was glad that our family's strong enough, connected enough, and have enough resources that even though power was out, we had a generator. we could get to each other, we could support one another, and we're fortunate to have a stockpile of food if we ever had a crisis. So
Yeah.
let's spill that analogy into the body. So what's your favorite way to build reserve? How you prepare people for the storms?
Well, like that, just being prepared physically, right? Having what you need to have stocked up. But I also like this principle of life is stressful and it's gonna be stressful. But when we choose when and how to stress ourselves, like a workout, right? If I go to the gym and get my legs strong, well, it's no problem if I have to sprint up the stairs. I don't bust out in a sweat, right? So it's not a matter of avoiding all stress. It's kind of choose your stressors so that when it happens, it's not as big of a deal. So I kind of like to have that intentional preparation as far as physical fitness. But hey, maybe even like dietary, right? If I choose to eat an ice cream cone every once in a while, then when it accidentally, dairy slips into my diet, it's not just like I have a little bit of resilience to it. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Well, and that's even the homeopathic principle, but which, by the way,
Like drinks, like
homeopathy is
right?
not practiced much these days. It's giving you a very, very micro dose of a stressor to
Yeah.
build your body's response in a way that's more nourishing to you. So now let's transition to the brain. What else do you like to do the brain besides getting people a more appropriate diet for them?
Well, appropriate diet, yeah. So if you take out what's causing a problem, that's a no-brainer. But then, I mean, similar neurologically, what kind of roadblocks are in your system that you maybe don't know about? And one of them that is like just like gluten and dairy, you owe it to yourself. Get the curve in your neck checked. See if you have the appropriate curve in your neck. There's neuroscientists that are doing research and showing us that our spinal cord stretches 5 to 7 centimeters when we go from having that curve to what we call technic or having that head forward posture. I mean, raise your hand if you want to be stretching your brain chronically. I mean, life is stressful enough. So we take digital x-rays, we look at posture, which you can tell a lot from the outside, but when you get an inside look with an x-ray, it's really telling what's going on there. And then we take a diligent approach to not only educate kids, especially on how do you hold your phone? Do you hold it like this when you're in line, or you just doing what everybody else is doing, following along? And then sometimes you got to look down at the desk. I mean, you're doing schoolwork, but did you do anything to counteract that? I mean, it's just crazy. It just hit me recently. Most people see a specialist for these and for these, and they've never thought about seeing a specialist for where their brain lives, their spine,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And they know the importance of dental hygiene and maybe even some eye exercises, but mostly dental hygiene. But what are you doing today to counteract what you did all day long? I mean, simply as just like stare at the ceiling when you brush your teeth. 2 minutes of this can make all the difference over the course of decades.
That
And so,
that may be the most practical advice I've ever heard. Stare at the ceiling
yeah,
when you're brushing your teeth.
as long as you don't choke on
And
your
hey, could we
toothpaste.
even extend that? Stare at the wall behind you.
Yeah,
When you're brushing your teeth.
yeah,
Think about that for a moment. How powerful and how practical.
yeah.
So now let's talk. What else is in your bag of tricks? Right? We want people to be aware. We want them to make simple changes. What's next?
So I mean, there's what you can do for yourself, right? Your posture, your spinal hygiene, being aware of your position in space, and there's plenty of resources out there for YouTube and all that. But I mean, shoulders back, doing the appropriate exercise, things like that. Where I try to help is I try to help people where they can't help themselves, and that's where the chiropractic part comes in. With the appropriate assessment, when we can find disconnects, or I like to call it like a blown fuse. You got so stressed out, you blew a fuse, and where a chiropractor can come and help you is help you to reconnect and reintegrate that brain to the body, your brain to your body, where it hasn't been able to on its own. And so there's a profound ability of getting some help from somebody else in the realm of chiropractic or all sorts of realms of coaching. I mean, pretty much any coaching you pay for pays back. If it's a good coach, pays back pretty quickly. So that's another thing that is just critical for just overall optimal health and wellness. And I mean, the prevention here, I mean, we're talking about preventing Alzheimer's and dementia, and this is really bad stuff we don't even want to talk about. But when you keep that blood flow to your brain, and that's how you spend the last 3, 4, 5 decades of your life, your chances of Alzheimer's and dementia, I mean, I wish I had a study to prove it. It just plummet, but it's one of those prove me right, prove me wrong. If your brain has better blood flow, everything is going to work better about it. And if you're living with a cutoff blood flow, doesn't matter what your genetics are, or a lot it does somewhat, but a big part of it's the epigenetics of what just happened to your brain. Did it atrophy and did it wear out 10, 20 years before you wanted it to?
So now you just brought up a really powerful term, epigenetics, above the genes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I taught a full series with the founder of functional medicine on epigenetics decades ago. The founder is Dr. Jeffrey Bland, Linus Pauling's research director, the only guy to ever won 2 Nobel Prizes. And there's different variations. Some say that epigenetics, what you do to your genes, is as much as 95%. That's the highest number I've seen of the health that you're going to show up with in the world. The lowest number I've seen is 2/3. So maybe that varies person to person, but hey, 2/3 of it are your choices. So why not make those better choices?
Yeah.
So Samuel, it's fascinating. You connected chiropractic to functional medicine, which I think we're the original functional medicine docs, but we look around our world, around our beautiful country, we're really, really struggling, but most people aren't reaching out to a chiropractor first. What's going on with that?
I think just a lack of awareness, to be honest with you. I mean, the dental industry, they did something right 50, 60 years ago, right? I mean, rewind 50, 60 years ago, I don't think most people flossed their teeth or went in for a preventative, have a professional clean your teeth for you checkup every 6 months or whatever. And now I don't know where that's at, but it's certainly above the 9 or 10% that see a chiropractor occasionally. I mean, maybe like 50% see a dentist. I don't know. But I think everybody agrees that there is undoubted benefit to having a professional cleaning for your teeth, and that also that can and likely will prevent thousands of dollars of issues and surgery and whatever root canals down the road. If we can just get the public to understand that, whether it's through regular carb, whatever regular means to you, but once a month is a game changer, or just being aware of your posture. I mean, how we got to teach people, and it's I'll take the responsibility for it. When I see an older guy or gal just hunched over and they can't even pick their head up, I kind of feel like we've let them down as a healthcare professional. I had a gentleman in just a couple weeks ago, and he was mortified when I had him stand against the wall and he couldn't get his head up against the wall. And he's like, when did that happen? If I could have got to him 20, 30 years ago, he would have been an ideal client. He would have done everything I asked him to. And now he's got chronic pain up there and just kind of playing hot potato, getting passed around the medical system, and nobody's sure how to help him.
I'm going to go back to Confucius. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Essentially, the next best time is right now. But Samuel, I'm going to throw a little spin on that. I've got plenty of people in my network, which is ever growing, that are frustrated with not having real solutions, right? They have a cover up, they have a Band-Aid, and some, they might even call them conspiracy theorists, say that natural remedies are being suppressed on purpose. And this is as natural as it gets. With pharmaceutical. I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole, because that rabbit hole has led to people being censored. But when we go with this awareness now, couldn't we all agree that people right now should be more aware than ever that medicine has its limitations and we should be looking for other strategies?
I hope people can agree with that. I mean, my wife's an RN, so I see the medical side of it, and we have arguably the best crisis care system in the world. But when it comes to root cause, get you off the medication, have you thriving on your own, I think a lot of our healthcare systems and protocols, they fall short. But I mean, to look at, there's an opportunity in every crisis. So we went through the issues our world did the last few years. And I think people thought more about their health, maybe in a fearful way, which wasn't great, but they thought more about their health more than they had ever before. And so if we can rise to the front and give people some options, especially with more going for a high deductible HSA, and they're kind of putting their dollars where they want them to go, I'm encouraged by that. But it's a slow shift, but all of us together, we can make it a better place. I'm excited for the future as far as that goes.
One of the best lectures I ever attended, I'm going to go back probably 35 years ago, and it was Dr. Dan Murphy, who's still on the circuit, still passionate, still powerful. And, my memory of the title of his presentation was Posture and the Optimal Spine. And they talked about that cervical curve, and then the counter thoracic curve, and then the lumbar curve, and where's your head sitting, and all those other things. And they talked about the importance of x-rays. And if you're laying down, you have no clue what your posture is.
Yeah.
So, when you're getting these x-rays, they're going to help you with your technique. They're going to help with compliance. They're going to help with the other things. Are they full spine? Are they regional? What are you doing with those things?
We do digital full spine X-rays. I mean, and the amount of radiation we get is like a flight to Florida and back, or
Yeah.
spending a day in the sun. I mean, it is so minimal, but what we can get for data off of that, and then with a digital, we mark the radius and angles, so we can catch even minute improvements, which is really cool. But a picture is worth 1,000 words, and like you said, I don't coach people on how to stand. I mean, they're standing, so it's weight bearing. I'll make sure that they're looking eye level just so they didn't happen to be staring at the ceiling or something. But we're taking an active picture of what they look like in their norm. I even say, just pretend you have to stand there for 5 hours. How do you want to stand? We take a picture and it's pretty cool. I mean, even in adults to see scoliosis curves, left right curves in the spine reduce or get under that scoliosis threshold, and that is all under the neurological control of the brain. And this idea that I mean, sometimes physical therapy and corrective exercises are necessary, and we do that. But in my professional opinion, it is pretty much never a muscle weakness issue when there's an abnormal curve in the spine. It's a disconnect, and I could prove it to you by, if you have a scoliosis in your spine, I could just say, okay, now bend to the left. I'll take another picture, and what do you know? It's straight now. So
Yeah.
you had enough muscle to make it straight, but really it's these habits or this chronic stress response. So the lateral x-ray that we take, chicken or the egg, right? Is it my posture and what I do for a living and how I have to look down, or is it because I'm so neurologically stressed I want to be in the fetal position? It doesn't really matter. The correction is the same. We got to reconnect that neurospinal system. We have to work on stress response, all of that. But when you can see your x-ray, I mean, it is an eye-opening experience for people. And it's really cool to show them that. And that's what we just want to do. I mean, what you do after you have that, in my mind, your health is safer no matter what you do. If you follow my recommendations or not, you walk out of my office with an idea of what's going on and that you have some influence in it. And if you circle back 6 months from then and you want to do it then, great. It might cost more, but it's empowering. So we try to make that as affordable as we can, just to get that digital x-ray. We call it discovery exam, just to really show them what's going on. And then if they want, we can partner with them to meet their goals.
We didn't have a pre-conversation to find out if you're a fan of Jordan Peterson. I trusted you would admire his wisdom and his 12 rules for life, but he says his number one rule is stand up straight with your shoulders down and back.
There you go.
Yeah. And it's throughout the entire ecosystem. He starts with lobsters.
Lobsters. Okay. I had not heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. You might want to read that book. Chapter 1, stand up straight with your shoulders down and back. I promise you, it's going to empower you with wisdom and thoughts that you never really came across.
That's good.
But you've mentioned something very, very interesting and powerful and universally true that I don't think the audience can quite grasp without a little more elaboration. You talked about the fetal position. So I want you to all Google startle position. There was a baseball game where, the batter broke the bat and the bat was flying into the audience and everybody was like this.
Yep.
And that is not an empowering position. That's, I'm going to get hurt. I'm not safe, right? And people don't even know that they're in that posture the majority of their day if they're in front of their pads, their phones, and every other things. So education is really, really key. What's the next thing you want to educate patients about?
So I'm all about useful cues. And so you mentioned shoulders, back, and down. I love the cue, get your shoulder blades in your pockets, back pockets. Yeah. So if your shoulder blades are in your back pockets, it's really hard to hurt your back. I mean, do that and then pick something up. You'll find that the only place you can move is by hinging. You basically stick your butt out, but you look like a shortstop fielding a ground ball. You're in a deadlift position. That is key. Go shovel snow in your driveway, shoulder blades in your back pockets, and you'll find your hips are moving and your spine is set. So just some simple movement patterns. That's a gem that we've been able to implement people and simple. So they take it with them. But yeah, shoulder blades, your back pockets. And if you don't feel like you're sticking your butt out when you go to bend over and lift something, you're probably doing it wrong. So you should hinge back. That's another one. Mindset. I mean, that's a whole other thing that we can go through. The power of our mind. And Bruce Lipton, another godfather of epigenetics, and how important the thought processes that we have and how we manifest what we're thinking about. The power of positivity is so remarkable. That's another direction we could go. Addiction. That's another thing with today. I mean, it is just, I know you went through some procedures on your shoulder, and just it's scary sometimes when people are put in a situation where they're written a prescription for some of these opioids, and you don't know how you're going to respond. Some people find them extremely addictive, and they didn't mean to, and it's just a slippery slope. But the opioid crisis and the addiction crisis for painkillers, but also, I mean, work, food, sex, gambling, drugs, and now this one too, the dopamine buzz that comes from this. The type of chiropractic that we do, torque release technique, has background in addiction studies, and that's really where the pilot study's from. And what they found there at the Holder Research Institute is they found that all vertebrates, so every animal, human that has a spine, we all have opiate receptors on our spine, right? Now, this isn't rocket science because Winnie the Pooh got it right with Eeyore all depressed and hanging his head, and then Tigger is like, I mean, he probably had as straight as neck as possible, how high strung he was. But opiate receptors are on our spine, and what the public needs to take from that is the position of your spine directly influences your brain chemistry and whether or not you can even feel good when you have that happy thought, right? So yes, what we think about is important, but if you're thinking about it like this, it's going to just stunt how good you feel. It's called reward deficiency syndrome. There's a domino effect of these brain chemicals that need to be released in the right order, in the right balance, in order for us just to feel normal. And so that's something that I really help. We're an outpatient. We don't do inpatient treatment by any means, but helping people with addiction, because I would venture to say everybody has it in their circle, in their family, whether you know it or not. It's just so prevalent.
In 2009, I taught an international neuro series with a neurologist from Cornell, and one of the topics was addiction. So I'd have a room of 200 doctors, and I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm going to give the answer. So I'd ask all 200 doctors, raise your hand if you've never been addicted to anything.
Yeah.
Well, how many hands do you think went up out of 200 in a typical audience all over the world?
I mean, I would hope that nobody did, but there's probably a few that raise them up.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
2 or 3, not many.
You're exactly right. I mean, listen, our reward system is there to reward us, but we got to choose our rewards wisely, as we need to choose our stressors wisely. You said that beautifully. So that's a very insightful answer. I would hope that no one did. So those that would raise their hand, I wonder, one, if they were the one in a gazillion that actually didn't have addiction, or if they were just disconnected or unwilling to admit that they were, which I think was a much higher probability.
And on that note, like this term addiction, just to demystify it, a person who's dealing with an addiction, they're not a bad person. They've basically just found a bad habit to meet a need we all have, right? So we are all addicted to efficiency. If I say you can feel exactly the same with 20 hours of work or 100 hours of work, I mean, who's going to pick 100, right? Yeah. So as soon as you jump out of a airplane, you get that adrenaline rush, you're like, holy smokes, and you find nothing that can even compare to that. It's, you can get addicted to rather healthy things too as well. So basically, I liked what you said. We choose our addiction because we're all seeking some sort of the most efficient way to get the job done, and we got to be careful with that. Who do we surround ourselves with? Who's our support network? And then there's shortcuts to take with a lot of illicit drug use and things like that, or you can get addicted to Jesus or exercise or something like that, doing good things for other people. You pick your addiction.
Yep. I want to go to a fun Sadhguru analogy. I don't know if you know who Sadhguru is, but I'll encourage you to look up some of his stuff. He's a sage of wisdom from India.
Okay.
And he gives these public talks, and sometimes they have 10 million views. So what his message is resonating with a lot of people. But someone asked him one time, they said, Sadhguru, why are good habits so hard to form and easy to break, and bad habits are the opposite? And Sadhguru stroked his white beard, which hangs down to his navel. He said, there are no good habits. And they said, what are you talking about? There must be good habits. He goes, no. Habit means that you've gotten to the point where you're unconscious about it. I don't ever want people to be unconscious, which resonated with you. So I asked the grandmaster at the time that I was training with in mixed martial arts, Grandmaster Al Garza, and I said, because I was talking about keep your core tight. If you're going to take a kick, you better be ready for it,
Yeah.
And I said, Grandmaster, when you're just standing around, do you consciously keep your core tight? And he looked at me and he said, when I'm conscious, I do. Ha.
There you go.
And why not elevate the level of consciousness? And that might be the next place to go with this. You have a level of consciousness that I rarely see in people that have been on the planet as short a time as you. Our initial exchange, I thought, this guy is wise. And when I heard 17 years, not 2017, because I wouldn't have any problem with what you've accumulated being in practice 17 years. But what's your favorite way to elevate consciousness?
Elevate consciousness. Okay. Part of it, a quick and easy one, is exercise. I mean, when you stimulate all your senses and you're pushing yourself safely to a maximum threshold with what I prefer is variable resistance training. It's a really cool way to do that. And I can do it in my living room as I'm watching my kids. But that levels the playing field as far as maybe I didn't get the right amount, as much sleep, or my diet wasn't spot on, or just, it really stabilizes where my consciousness can be at and how I'm firing all cylinders. But then that's a loaded question. There's a lot of things. There's I remember when you spoke at the Great Lakes Conference, I don't know, 2019. One of the things you said were the 3 keys to life, and you were talking to one of your mentors. It was relationship, relationship, relationship. Right?
Yep.
God created us to be in relationship with Him and others, and when our relationship between our brain and our body isn't where it should be, or between our husband and wife, or father and kids, or friends, or whatever it is, not a lot in life, not a lot with consciousness can even be in the right place. So exercise, I really love, but then just maintaining healthy relationships all around. That would be kind of my catch-all there, as the purpose for life and what we're about.
All right. And then let's just delve into that a little bit deeper. What's your favorite strategy to enhance those relationships?
Quality time. I mean, it's one, intimate and quality time is one thing you really can't get around, and that's a hard thing for me to do sometimes, to slow down and not put expectations on what that date night devotion time, church message service look like. That was a huge breakthrough for me. I dealt with depression for over a decade, and one of the biggest things that helped me break through was getting dairy out of my diet and the brain fog. But the mental aspect of it is what I call the crisis formula. So essentially, a good definition of crisis is unmet expectation, right? To some, it's not a perfect definition, but it's a pretty good one. Well, the cool thing is we can control, to a large degree, what our crises are, because we can control our expectations. And what I didn't realize is I'm a very analytical, specific person. I had very high, often unrealistic expectations kind of on autoplay in the background. So I'd go on a date night with my wife, and I had in the background, like, oh, this is going to be the best one ever, best date ever. I'll watch a movie. Oh, it better be the best one ever. Well, it never. I mean, unless it actually is the best movie you've ever seen. Life was a constant letdown, right? Once I came in the opposite spirit and I intentionally said, I don't expect this to be the best movie I've ever seen. I don't expect this to be the best workshop I've ever done. Then I could finally just set back and just be present and experience, and not have to have whatever date night, movie, workshop, vacation look a specific way, and just enjoy it for what it was. So then the quality time went up, and life wasn't a constant letdown, because the old Sam, it was a constant letdown, even though it shouldn't have been. From the outside, life is good, but inside, everything was unmet expectation, and I was in crisis mode. My physiology showed it. But that was a huge breakthrough for me. We control our crises by what our expectations are. And for me, I had to declare what my non-expectations are. Just say what you're not expecting to happen, and then what you hope to happen, right? Hope for the sky, hope for everything to go well, but don't expect it if you can't control it.
I have a mentor that said that perfection is the absolute worst standard because it's unachievable.
Yeah.
And the closer you expect towards that, more likely the more you are let down.
Exactly.
So what a beautiful conversation on really a treatise of how to live your absolute best life. Yeah. So Samuel, I'm gonna make it real practical, and then we're gonna wrap this up. Let's say I come to you and I say, I'm not feeling good. I something's just not right. I'm not happy. I'm not on purpose. Things are just breaking down. What's your starting point?
Starting point is we have some version of just, I mean, if you're in person, if I can get to you in person, we do a chiropractic discovery exam, and we go through and we do our nerve scans for checking how your brain is connecting with your body, the digital X-rays, the history. But really, it's just to discover what's going on, but ultimately ask you, what do you want to accomplish? And then we can set out on a journey, based on, I'll match a recommendation with what you want to accomplish. If you're not close, I also do virtual health coaching. So I've got a signature process called a program, a Superhuman You signature program. We go through discover, optimize, and excel. So same thing, we got to discover those blind spots that are probably holding you back, and then we optimize it. And then I don't know anybody who wants to just get better and then fade right back. So then we have to figure out a plan to excel, like keep moving forward. There's no wading in the river. You're paddling upstream or you're flowing downstream. So discover, optimize, excel. And I take as much of what, the mindset things like that, the posture things, like everything I can do except for actually adjust you with that virtual health coaching. But we can find somebody in your area if you need chiropractic care, which I would recommend. We find somebody in your area and we can work at it through that way.
Well, your language is so powerful. You use the term blind spots.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everybody knows, we actually have a physical blind spot. You think about it in your car, but the point where the nerves join the retina, and there's no receptors, there's no cones, there's no rods at that point, and you're blind. So what does your brain do? Your brain fills in what it thinks it belongs there. We have no awareness of our blind spot, and it's with us 24/7, 365 for God knows how many decades we have on this planet. Yeah. And probably the best way to overcome a blind spot, you can't get rid of that physical one, but think about all the other things that you are blind to. And here's what I would suggest. Choose your coaches wisely. The best of the best invest in themselves, which, by the way, Warren Buffett said was the best investment you could make. So, Samuel, how can people reach you? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Just go to our website, principledlivingmn as in Minnesota.com. And we've got multiple ways, a lot of good information on the website about our services. But you can just chat us right there on the pop-up and we can get in touch that way. And
we're going to put that link, this is going to be posted on a number of platforms, and we're going to put that link for you below. And here's what I'll tell you. This man is sharing a lot of wisdom. If you're in his area, I believe you owe it to yourself and your family to go check him out. So, Samuel, I'm going to give you the final moments to share your message with the world. What message do you have right here, right now that you want to share?
Man, life is short. Have a plan for what you're going to do with this one, and then also for the next one too. You don't have to live in fear. And I ask people, somebody say, hey, can I ask you a weird question? Everybody says yes, right? You ask people, are you afraid to die? It's amazing I mean, and especially going after what the world's been through, it's like, you don't have to be. Yeah. You can be looking forward to what you have eternally, or you can roll the dice and cross your fingers, and I wouldn't recommend it. So have a game plan for your health, physical health here and now, but spiritual health going forward. The best decision you ever made.
I need to look at who said this first, but I had that near exact conversation with a woman today who lost a friend tragically. Okay. And I said, you know what? Everybody wants to get to heaven. Just no one wants to die to get there. And so how fascinating, right? So we do not have to fear death, period. Amen. End of story. So Samuel, I'm looking, and we're at 33 as I just looked at our timer, which is in so many ways, I believe, magic. And I think that's the sweet spot to at least put a pause in this conversation. We're going to share the link in the bio. We're going to share you with the world. And here's what I'm going to encourage everybody to do. Step up your game. And if you're having challenges, you can reach out virtually, easier than ever. There's a bunch of free stuff. Most of the time in life, you get what you pay for. Sometimes you pay for with sweat equity, but investments made in experts usually pay exponentially. Amen. And you, my friend, are one of those great experts.
Amen. Well, thanks, Doc. I really appreciate it. And I wish you the best.
Well, the best to all of us. And I close with these words. I'm Dr. Bobrakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful. So if you're in a dark part of the world, good night. If you're in a light part of the world, good day. And wherever you are, God bless.
God bless.